My name is Georgianne Koenig, and I am the current Director for Membership and Academic Engagement for APTA Michigan. And I'm recording this video for you today because we like to provide our students with a yearly update on the value of APTA and APTA Michigan membership. I apologize because I do not have the technology to be able to have two monitors. So you're going to sort of see my PowerPoint and my notes at the same time, but hopefully it won't be too distracting. And maybe it'll mean that you also have access to some of the specifics of some of the things we're going to talk about today. So I'm excited to be here with you all today. So APTA is an association that is over 100,000 members strong. We are made up of physical therapist assistants, and PT and PTA students. So the APTA partners with you throughout your career. Membership is personal, so I want to take a minute to sort of tell you a little bit about my membership journey and why I became a member and why I continue to be one today. So my membership began in 2012 in my first year as a DPT student. I'll be celebrating 10 years of membership next year. And as a student, I became involved in the Student Relations Committee, which is now known in APTA Michigan as the Student SIG. At that time, the organization's main purpose was to promote membership in the APTA and MPTA, and also to help plan the APTA Michigan Student Conclave. My first year of being a volunteer, I was mostly making phone calls for prospective exhibitors. And the second year I ran for co-vice president. And then I was elected and became the co-president, one of the co-presidents my third year of PT school. After I graduated, our then APTA Michigan president, Mike Shoemaker, asked me how I would like to stay involved as a clinician. And I became one of the co-chairs for APTA Michigan's membership committee. Then starting in January of 2020, I began my tenure on the board of directors for APTA Michigan as the director for membership and academic engagement. My membership is important to me because the APTA and APTA Michigan protect my practice through group efforts at a level that I could never hope to reach as an individual. My membership dues enable practice and payment committees at the state and national level to sit at the table with stakeholders such as Blue Cross Blue Shield and Medicare to advocate for my best interest. It's an opportunity that we as PTs, PTAs, and students could never hope to have if we didn't stand together. I enjoy this profession immensely, and I view my membership as an insurance that my practice will continue to be protected and to flourish in the years to come as healthcare trends change, which they inevitably will. In addition to this primary motivation that I have to be a member, I love the networking aspect of being a member as well, which I've missed out on a little bit since COVID. But that's why I got involved as a student and why I continue to be involved today. Additionally, my volunteer role for APTA Michigan enables me to earn PDR credits, 4 per cycle, by giving my own time and efforts and not paying for a course out of my own pocket. So just to let you know a little bit about me and why I chose to become a member and why I continue to be a member today. If you're not yet a member, it's extremely easy to join. You can visit www.apta.org/join. So essentially, without members, there would be no APTA. We are a member organization that is driven by the goals and the efforts of thousands of individuals who give their time daily, weekly, monthly to make sure that things keep moving in the right direction to bring our profession forward and to generate its momentum. So in the middle of APTA is you, but these are some of the other governing bodies that exist in APTA. We have 51 state chapters, a 15-member board of directors, a 400-member House of Delegates, 18 special interest sections, special interest groups, headquarters staff, and 30,000 plus student members. So this type of infrastructure is similar at the state level as well. The House of Delegates is specifically something that is a national entity alone. It's an APTA policy-making body comprised of voting chapter delegates, non-voting delegates, and consultants. So the House meets annually for 3 successive days each spring, and during that time, delegates make decisions on issues that may have far-reaching implications for the association and for the profession of physical therapy. The business of the House follows a parliamentary procedure and is conducted through the introduction of delegate proposed motions. The reason that I like to bring this up to you is that students do have the opportunity to volunteer at the House of Delegates as an usher. This year, the House of Delegates is supposed to take place in person in September in Virginia. I don't know if they're going to be accepting student applications for ushers this year because of COVID-19, but I do anticipate that this is something that will return in the future. And I know people personally who have volunteered to attend, and they've said it's an extremely exciting, riveting experience to be a part of. So that's something that you as a student can get involved in. Within the House of Delegates, there's also a PTA caucus. So in Michigan, we just recently elected our new PTA caucus rep, but it's really important for those of you who are PTA students. We really need to have someone to sit at the table to advocate for the interests of the PTA, in addition to the interests of the PTAs in our state. So the PTA caucus rep goes to the House of Delegates and represents the interests of PTAs and PTA students for the entire state. So pretty big responsibility, but it's really a wonderful opportunity to get back and to volunteer for the professional association. So APTA helps you to sort of build your community, build your people. Like I said, one of my favorite reasons for attending conferences and being involved is the networking. I graduated from physical therapy school in 2015 from Central Michigan University. So I've been practicing for about 6 years now. And it doesn't matter if it was my first year out of school or even now virtually attending our conferences. I get so re-energized for my career and my profession every single time that I get a chance to interact with these wonderful people who are reaching for the stars, doing amazing things with research, doing amazing things with community outreach. It just helps you gain perspective of what it means to be a PT outside of your 9 to 5, outside of the paperwork, outside of maybe that, 45-minute to an hour interaction with a patient. And it really helps you see the big picture of what you can accomplish and the wide scope of the impact that you can have as a PT or a PTA. So APTA conferences and APTA Michigan conferences, there are many different conferences that you can attend. APTA's largest is the Combined Sections meeting. This year it was virtual in the month of February because of COVID-19. I have attended twice, and both times it was an extremely rewarding event to attend. In 2022, upcoming dates here, it is anticipated that we will be able to return in person in San Antonio, Texas. The dates are February 1st through 4th, and as you can see down there at the bottom, they actually have dates and locations planned out for the next 2 years as well. They try to sort of move the location so that it's east side of the country, west side of the country, south and north, so that travel costs are a little bit less. Attending CSM as a student is a really wonderful opportunity. My first time that I attended was as a student because the rates for attending are less if you're a student member. The way that it works, and we'll get in a little bit to the sections more in a second, but the programming is driven by the individual sections. So if you go and let's say you have an extremely strong interest in sports PT, the sports section has multiple different courses that you can choose from within any given time slot. The level of programming is always the highest quality. Anyone who's doing extremely relevant up and coming research will be there. So I remember when I was a student, some of you may have heard the name Lorimer Mosley. He was kind of the guy to watch at CSM that year. I think that would have been in 2014. And I remember seeing people just lined up out the doorway to go to his presentation, and they eventually had to turn people away because of the fire restrictions for the amount of people allowed to be in the room. And I had attended an event or a course that was hosted by the women's health section, and he made a guest appearance and nobody was expecting him to be there. So it was really wonderful to get to hear him speak. We also have conferences that we host in APTA Michigan. So the next one coming up is going to be the fall conference, October 15th and 16th, which we are hoping to be able to do in person at Motor City Casino in Detroit. The Friday is more of like a research day. So if you're a student and you participate in research, please submit it when the call for abstracts comes out. I believe that'll probably be near the end of the summer. I had the opportunity to present my research at the state and at the national level at CSM. And it's so wonderful to take a project like that you spend so much time on and then finally be able to present it to clinicians who see the relevance and the value of it. Yeah, I know for me, like when my parents came to the research colloquium, they were basically just like, oh, this is really cool. We're proud of you. But it means a lot to be able to talk to somebody who's like, I'm dealing with this with my patients and this is relevant to me because why, X, Y, Z. So I would really, really encourage any of you that participate in research to use these conferences. All you need to do is apply. And there are sometimes awards that go along with that as well. Also, every year we host the Student Conclave and the Spring Conference / Pain Summit that just took place at the end of March, and it was virtual this year because of COVID. Dates and locations are to be determined yet for that for 2022. So as you can see, the APTA is made up of chapters and sections. So when we say chapter, we mean state. You can be a member of more than one chapter. So some people who say maybe are traveling therapists, their home state is Michigan, but they are currently in another state, you are able to have some concurrent memberships within those chapters, but you do have to be a part of a state chapter in which you are licensed. So that's not really something that you can opt out of, but state membership has completely different benefits than national membership, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later. So within these chapters, we also have our own special interest groups and volunteer groups. So as I mentioned, I used to be the membership chair in APTA Michigan. We are constantly looking for new volunteers, and we have different committees. Just a few to name off the top of my head are membership, legislative, payment. Right now we have a special centennial task force because we're celebrating 100 years of the APTA this year in 2021. And we have one student on that committee as well. We have a communications committee. So all of these committees are open to student volunteers as well. So if you kind of want to get your foot in the door, but you don't really know how to start, my contact information is going to be at the end of this slide, and I'd be happy to just talk to you and get to know what your interests are, get you plugged into a committee or task force where you can sort of get to know what happens behind the scenes a little bit more. And also you can put that on your resume when you're looking to apply for jobs. A couple of the special interest groups that we have in Michigan are the Pain SIG. They help to put on the Pain Summit every year, the Oncology SIG, and the Student SIG. APTA also has 18 sections to increase your expertise, and they are all listed here. Just as a little note, it's really a great idea to try out different section memberships when you're a student. The majority of the cost per year for each of these sections is going to be most likely less than $30 per year. I know that the research section is free to join as a student. So that's a really good one to choose, opt into, and then it can help you with, those research projects near the end of your education. I am a member of the neurology section and the home health section, both of which have their own publications and journals. I also know that the neurology section has a mentorship program. So for those of you who are students, or even once you're an early career professional, it's great to get involved in that mentorship program so you can seek mentorship for clinical reasons, for professional reasons. We are also in the process of hopefully developing a DEI mentorship program here within the state of Michigan as well. So it's always great to have someone who you can bounce ideas off when you're early in your career or as a student, when you have to make big decisions like which clinical rotation is going to serve me best, in the long run, or what topics would be good for research, or how to interview and find a job. Each section also has its own special interest groups. So for example, because I'm a member of the neurology section, some of the SIGs that are free to gain access to once you pay for the neurology section membership are assistive technology, seating and wheelchair mobility, balance and falls, brain injury, degenerative diseases, spinal cord injury, stroke, and vestibular rehabilitation. And I know the vestibular SIG has a wonderful podcast as well. Great emails with monthly articles that they share the article one month and then they sort of review it together, sort of like a journal club every single month. So these are some wonderful practice resources if you are already starting to feel as though you're specializing or wanting to specialize in one area of PT practice. As I mentioned before, APTA Michigan is always accepting student volunteers. If you're unsure where to begin, reach out to me and I can help point you in the right direction. The Student SIG is also a great place to start as a student. This is a big part of the why for me as well, which I didn't really mention earlier, but APTA and APTA Michigan provide strong voices for us on Capitol Hill. So I would say that for me personally, as some of my membership benefits sort of, they ebb and flow as to what's important to me at different times in my career, this is the one that always stays constant. This is the reason why my membership will never lapse and I will become a lifetime member and I will donate to the Political Action Committee. So since I've been practicing yearly, something has changed within PT practice. So for the first 5 years that I was practicing, I worked in a skilled nursing facility. Huge changes happened there with the transition from the rehab utilization group payment system to PDPM, the patient-driven payment model. Essentially, Medicare and other entities are constantly evolving, constantly changing, and we need a resource to be able to stay up to date with what is best practice, how to ethically practice as a PT within these constant changes. And APTA really helps to decode some of those changes, but also occasionally those changes are somewhat threatening to our practice. And APTA gets to sit at the table when we ourselves as individuals would not be able to. So I'd like to take some time to talk a little bit about some of the state and national issues that have been currently or recently being worked on by either the legislative committee through APTA Michigan or the legislative voices through APTA. So recent state issues, we just actually had our APTA Legislative Advocacy Day, which was virtual this year for the first time, just this past week. And the two big issues right now are the PT Licensure Compact, which was introduced in the Senate January 13th of 2021. So this legislation would allow essentially an individual's license to be recognized in another state. So this is an extremely beneficial piece of legislation for those of you who may be thinking that you want to work in travel PT in your first few years as a clinician, which is, I know I had a lot of classmates that did that. It allows you to try out multiple different practice settings in multiple different places, gives you that flexibility of even being able to try out a new state to live in. Currently, Michigan does not participate in a PT licensure compact. So individuals who are licensed in another state that come to Michigan have to apply for licensure in the state of Michigan. The licensure compact would essentially allow, or our participation in the licensure compact would allow an individual to easily move from Wisconsin to Michigan or Ohio to Michigan, and to be able to practice in those different states without having to apply for a new license every single time. Essentially, you would be grandfathered in, that if you're licensed in one state, your license is valid in another. Not all of the other states are participating in this yet as well, but we're hopeful that Michigan will be able to participate in the near future if this can get moved through the legislature. Also, prior authorization reform. So for those of you who may have done clinical rotations, you may have heard the phrase, my insurance cut me off, or my insurance kicked me out, or something like that. So many of the private insurance companies at this point in time have an opinion about how much therapy a patient should receive. Whether that is, do you qualify to even go to that type of therapy? For example, like an inpatient rehabilitation or subacute rehab, versus how much therapy you can have in home health or in outpatient. So there have been some recent changes to prior authorization that have caused a significant amount of administrative burden to outpatient, rehab, home health. Like I said, it affects every single part of the healthcare continuum, including acute care PTs, because they have to be able to provide the justification for why the patient needs to go to the discharge location that they're recommending. So this prior authorization reform legislation is just an effort to try to make sure that there is no undue burden in those of us trying to provide medically necessary physical therapy services to our patients. It's an issue I feel pretty passionately about. I know I tend to have extremely thorough documentation because in the past I've had patients who I felt as though their needs weren't being met in regard to the duration of their care or when they were safe to be discharged. But it does put a significant amount of burden on me as the PT, to write out multiple paragraphs about why someone might not be safe to transition to the next level of care. So it's important for our patients too. People who have suffered significant, health changes such as a stroke, or even someone who's coming to outpatient and who's benefiting and really needs the skills of a therapist, but continues to need more time. We are really the ones that are the most qualified to make the decision as to how long the care should last. This slide, we're going to focus a little bit more on some of the federal changes that have come up recently. So in 2020, during the COVID-19 pandemic, we faced a really terrible challenge as a profession. CMS, the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, planned to move ahead in the wake of the pandemic with damaging payment cuts to up to 37 professions. And physical therapy was included in that. And we were facing a 9% overall across the board reduction in payment. So after private practice clinics were suffering from having to either really restrict care or close their doors during the beginning of the pandemic temporarily, or maybe even permanently, while staff that was employed by hospitals were maybe furloughed or reallocated to different, service areas. A 9% reduction in payment was really something that the APTA felt was, what's the word I'm looking for? Not appropriate. So there was a huge advocacy effort. And as you'll see here, this is a photo of a member speaking to a congressperson, which we did often at Legislative Advocacy Day prior to COVID, but also this grassroots effort for the CMS changes, because it was during COVID, was primarily via email, the APTA Advocacy Action app, and we were just contacting our legislators and saying, listen, this is not appropriate at this point in time. So our advocacy efforts were fueled by historic levels of participation from APTA members. More than 120,000 communications were sent to Congress, 25,000 comment letters sent to CMS, and 100 legislator meetings and events attended by individual APTA members. So this is where we need members to essentially either be engaged or to provide financial support through dues to ensure that when something like this happens, we can pull out all the stops. If all of us were trying to organize this individually, we would never have had that much of an impact. So the more members we have, the more engaged members we have, the stronger the voice, the more that Congress is going to hear us when something like this happens. So, and student participation is extremely relevant here as well. You do not need to be a practicing PT or PTA to participate in these types of programs. So essentially, the original physician fee schedule called for that 9% decrease in payment for codes tied to Part B services. The action in late December 2020 reduced that cut to an estimated 3% decrease. But the story doesn't end there. The physician fee schedule for 2022 is still planned to have a cut in services provided by PTAs and CODAs that will be reimbursed at a rate of 85% compared to services rendered by a PT or an OT. APTA directly opposes this decision, but we are only as strong as our numbers. So it's really important that we all stand together to ensure the integrity of our practice, access that patients have to care, and to show the effectiveness and the importance of the work provided by all of our members, including PTAs. There is no reason why services rendered by a PTA should be paid at a lower rate than services rendered by a PT. A couple of other things sort of nationally that are being worked on from a legislative perspective, education and workforce advocacy. So APTA has a pretty strong stance that we need more physical therapists and physical therapist assistants, that as the population is aging, this is a career that we want students in high school or students in middle school to choose and work towards. However, the cost for education, which I'm sure those of you listening to this presentation know, is very high. So APTA is actively working to get physical therapy and physical therapy students or graduates included in any and all appropriate loan repayment, loan forgiveness type programs. The other big push on the federal level is telehealth advocacy, especially when considering extremely rural areas like the Upper Peninsula, you know, things like that. But the APTA feels that, you know, when utilized appropriately within clinical judgment of the clinician, that telehealth services should be reimbursable. Not utilized all the time, but when appropriate. And that during COVID, we were able to demonstrate and show that we can effectively render services through that outlet. This next slide kind of shows you the APTA advocacy app. We also use flash action strategies. So that's kind of what happened at the end of December 2020. The strategy that we are all sending communication that speaks the same message all at the same time to have the largest impact on those legislators and to foster change. Another one of the big things that APTA does is to advance the profession through public awareness. So I'm sure many of you have family members or friends who don't really know what PT is and what PTs and PTAs do. They think it's similar to a personal trainer, or they would have no idea that PTs play a role in cardiopulmonary health or in vestibular dysfunction or pelvic floor. Lots of different, you know, those little different niche areas. So the Choose PT brand is APTA's official consumer brand and website. They have had commercials that were on TV a little while ago, and they also have they produced 2 public service announcements for TV and radio. I'm sure you guys have heard the hashtag Choose PT campaign, and that one was specifically regarded regarding choosing physical therapy as an option for individuals with chronic pain prior to choosing opioid treatment. And then a new public service announcement in February of 2021 on the importance of physical activity. Another great reason to be a member of APTA and APTA Michigan is that it improves your ability to strengthen patient care through evidence-based practice. So one of my favorite resources to use is the Rehab Reference Center. There's access to home exercise program, visual handouts. You can customize a sheet and you can save it for later. So I have one that I have saved for postural drainage and percussion that I've used to teach family members how to perform. That includes all of the different positionings of the patient. I have one that's a couple of different breathing exercises that I enjoy specific to my patients with cardiopulmonary problems. And for me as a home health therapist, it's nice to have those ready to go so that I can print them off, keep them in my car, keep them in my bag, and then I can circle and X out as needed because I don't always have the opportunity to have access to a printer at all times. So that way I feel pretty prepared to hand the patient something that they can start that day immediately after meeting them. You can also use APTA resources such as article search, clinical practice guidelines. I don't know if you've ever read one, but they are a nice summary of current research available in extremely digestible, clinically relevant language. So if you are sort of wanting to learn more about how to treat, say, a patient with BPPV, I know that there's a really good clinical practice guideline available for essentially current evidence-based practice of management of people with BPPV. There are multiple other ones available. That's just one of the ones that I personally have enjoyed. You can also use these resources to access journal articles. So we'll move forward. We have APTA Magazine, which keeps you informed. So this is kind of more this is what's going on in the field of physical therapy. And then there's also the Daily News blog with weekly email letters. PTJ is the APTA's official scientific journal. So if you're looking for systematic reviews, meta-analysis, randomized controlled trials, PTJ is where you're gonna look. And then you can also use article search. So if you have a patient with a specific type of problem, or if you're looking to do a literature review for some research, even while you're a student, this is a great resource to have. APTA is active on social media as well as APTA Michigan. So APTA Michigan is active on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And you can find us if you just search APTA-MI. And then even within that, I believe all of our SIGs are active on Facebook. Some of the different sections are active on Facebook and Twitter. Our YouTube account has some really wonderful, last year we did a consumer campaign where we interviewed, I think it was 3 or 4 different PTs working in different practice settings, just to kind of say, this is PT, this is all falls under the umbrella of PT, and this is what a PT can do for you. So if you have a minute while you're watching this presentation, pull out your phone or your computer and follow us on those social media accounts. The primary means that we use to communicate with you are going to be those social media accounts, email blasts once you're a member, and our website. The social media presence that we have is our best way of communicating with prospective members and with the public. Sometimes we will have consumer campaigns. I was able to have the privilege to run a COVID-19 Heroes campaign on our Facebook account last year, right around this time, actually, highlighting some of our wonderful, amazing members in Michigan who were simply adapting to life due to COVID-19. Whether that meant that, you know, it's a mom who's normally a school PT who's at home taking care of her kids and also trying to do virtual visits with children and parents. or someone who usually works in an outpatient clinic owned by a hospital who's now been reallocated to the COVID-19 testing center, people who were working on proning teams, kind of leading the way in mobilizing patients with COVID-19 in ICUs. It was really, really inspirational to see what all of my fellow peers and students were doing, and to be able to highlight them in that way. And it was really wonderful to see even their friends and family members kind of commenting on the pictures of them. Because I don't think that when most people look back or think about, now we're not looking back on it yet, but think about, the early days of COVID-19 and some of the strain on healthcare providers. I don't think that our profession is at the top of their awareness, but we do want people to know that we were there. We've been there. We are doing everything possible to try to help move past this. And it's a privilege to be a part of a profession with people doing such wonderful work. This is something I definitely want to talk about for you students. So APTA has a wonderful program that most of the time I have an input if Michigan is going to continue to participate in, and my input is always yes. So if you are an active member of APTA and APTA Michigan when you graduate from your program, as long as you do not let that membership lapse, automatically you're entered into the early career discount on dues. So your first year after graduation, you get a 50% discount on dues. And then as you'll see, that discount goes up 10% each year until the end of year 4. So this is kind of a way to cushion that cost of dues when we know that you may still just be getting those first few paychecks. You may just be buying a new house. You may just be, living on your own for the first time, paying back some of those student loans, things like that. So this is a program that I was able to participate in for all 4 years, and I think it's highly beneficial and just a way for us to say, we really value you as students to be members, and we want to ease the transition into your early career professional engagement, and we want you to stay, and we want you to find value in our organization. The APTA does have a financial solutions center to help manage the cost of education for PT and PTA students. You can also earn CEUs. So the APTA Learning Center has wonderful high quality continuing education. For those of you who may not be aware, in the state of Michigan, every 2 years when you renew your license, as of right now, you have to provide 24 PDRs is what we call them, professional development requirements. So as I mentioned earlier, my volunteer activities in APTA Michigan get me 4 credits per year. Per committee if I wanted to have more than one role, but I really just have the one board of directors role. So for me, each relicensure period, that means that 8 of those 24 credits are already met. I just have to attend at least 50% of my scheduled meetings, which I always attend more than that. And I get a certificate that says that I participated. And same for the volunteers who kind of work on committees that I help manage. I provide them with certificates that say that they gave of their time. So this is kind of nice because continuing education courses are just one of the ways that you can get those professional development requirements. So the APTA Learning Center is a really great place to get your CEUs. You can pay $198 a year to get access to all of the courses through the Passport to Learning subscription. I know a few years back, I got a random email in January that said, thank you for your membership, please choose a free CEU. And they were all really high quality topics. I was able to choose one on neuroplasticity in treating patients with stroke. It was a 2-hour-long, 2-credit course that was recorded from a previous combined sections meeting that I hadn't been able to attend. So really relevant to my practice. I believe they normally have at least a few at any point in time who are free to take. I believe there's a defensible documentation course and like an ethics and practice course. compliance related things that the APTA believes every PT and PTA should have a good handle on. But you still get a certificate when it's all said and done that you can save for when you have to show your 24 PDRs when you renew your license. I think I forgot to mention this earlier, but one of the other benefits of membership is that you do get a discount. Yeah, it's not on there. You get a discount for being an APTA member to MedBridge, which is a very, very large online CEU webinar access site. They also have HEP resources as well. Yes, this is it. $175 off of the normal $375 subscription to MedBridge. Over 1,000 video courses and live webinars. APTA also helps make your job search easy. I know I personally have applied to at least one job that I found out about through emails. APTA will send, I think it's called the Red Hot Jobs email out. And then even some of, like, I know the neurology section has their own area of the website where people can post jobs that are specific to that sort of practice area. So it's a really good resource to have for you students once you're all finished with your education. The Find a PT directory helps patients find you. So for example, if you're working in an area and you have a specialty practice in vestibular or something like that, sports medicine, you can put your name in here. You can put what your additional continuing education is in, so that patients can use this site to help find a clinician that's going to meet their needs in their area. It's also really good for people who own their own private practice. Helps your clinic to be readily located. Advancing your career. So PTA members are eligible to pursue the PTA Advanced Proficiency Pathways. I know that there's an acute care PTA Advanced Proficiency and a geriatrics. I believe there are a few more, but I don't have all of the different types committed to memory. And then PTs can pursue American Board of Physical Therapy practice specialist certification. And you get a 45% savings on your fees in related to that specialist certification. PTs may also consider continuing their education through a residency program. So those are the types of things that you can do after you graduate. Just take your career that step further and to be a very attractive candidate for any jobs or to eventually transition into, say, education. I'm sure quite a few of your professors have those advanced specialty certifications as well. So all of this is in your future. If you want to get involved now, you can, even if you only have a limited amount of time. So volunteering for the APTA or for APTA Michigan, there is a huge spectrum of time commitment, geographical requirement. Right now, almost everything is virtual because of COVID. But I know for me and the volunteers that I kind of help manage, sometimes we have people who are just always the person who sit at the table at the conference handing out educational materials. And then sometimes we have people who maybe don't live very close to where we hold the conferences, but they are sending out window clings in the mail, or they are making the emails and the phone calls to exhibitors and things like that. So I feel as though I find much more value in my membership because I have been involved on the inside, and I've sat in board of directors meetings even before I was on the board of directors, and I've seen how this body has to function, even on the state level. I really don't have this much of a insider view on the national level. I've seen all of the different hard work that has to occur to be able to keep this wheel in motion. And it gives me an immense amount of respect for the people who give their time to service, you know, our president, for our executive director, and for every single volunteer along the way, because we wouldn't be able to get anything accomplished if we didn't, you know, stand together. And this is why in the words of Uncle Sam, we want you to be a member, and we'd love to have you volunteer. This is a way that you can look up volunteer opportunities at APTA Engage. On the APTA Michigan website, we have a very clear volunteer here button. And if you don't really know, again, you can just sort of say, these are my interest areas. And I am normally the person that will receive the email to follow up with you. This year, we are celebrating our centennial, 100 years of APTA. We have multiple different events that are happening in Michigan. Some of them have already come and gone, but some upcoming things. Right now, we're running the Flat Molly campaign, which is just a little competition. APTA Pennsylvania is hosting it, where APTA provided a picture of Mary McMillan, and we can print her out and we can take her places and take photos and upload it to social media. And those photos can be submitted to APTA Pennsylvania, and there is a prize for some of the most creative submissions. We in Michigan would love to see Molly, as her friends called her, or Mary McMillan, visiting every single PT and PTA program in the state, taking a picture in front of, a sign that says Delta College, or inside of the biomechanics lab at U of M Flint. We would like her to see what practice is like in Michigan now. We also have an upcoming virtual happy hour event that's going to kind of be a blended hosting between Centennial and our DEI committee. We're hoping to have hopefully one, maybe two speakers who are able to speak not only on the trajectory of their career, but the trajectory of their career and how things have changed within the field of physical therapy as a minority. And we're very, very interested to hear those stories. So look for that in early June. We also have 100 days of service coming up in the fall. So we will be promoting ways that people can give back to their communities virtually and maybe in person, depending on CDC recommendations and guidelines. Members also receive special offers from different national brands. So I know I have used multiple of these before in the past. Yeah, it's just a little extra benefit of being an APTA member. So the biggest value of APTA and APTA Michigan is what we accomplish together. I think I've probably said that enough that it's sunken in by now. Our vision statement is transforming society by optimizing movement to improve the human experience. As clinicians, we do that one person at a time, and as an association, our potential grows one engaged member at a time. You are at the center of APTA. You have the capability to not just receive value, but to create it for yourself and for others. And the association is at the center of whatever you want to be today or tomorrow. Your potential is limitless, and your success expands the potential of APTA. The association is yours, and the most valuable thing about APTA is you. So I just want to say thank you and for listening to this presentation. And for those of you listening, you can use the code APTAView to take 10% off of anything in the APTA store. And here at the end is my name and my contact information. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me if you have any questions about the presentation today. And thank you so much for your time and attention. Talking about membership is something that I'm extremely passionate about. And I just really appreciate the opportunity to be in front of you here on your computer screen. Have a wonderful rest of your day.